Right, some breaking news coming in. The ASG Tushar Mehta has in fact submitted that the government will leave the matter of constitutionality of Section 377 to be decided by the court. A very important update coming in right now from the Supreme Court. Remember, as day 2 of Section 377 hearing begins, the ASG further submitting that the practices like incest should not be promoted. The CJI allays such apprehensions by retorting that such relationships are void under law. My colleague Meenakshi Bhanja joining me on the phone line with more. Meenakshi, we understand that the government of India has asked the apex court to decide if Section 377 as per its wisdom. Go ahead.
Well, Sanjana, the matter has just commenced. This was day 2. And amidst all the speculation and anticipation, the government of India is stating this position on record before the Supreme Court. The government is citing some doubts it has had about legitimacy being added to pervert behavior. Of course, it is talking about other instances here, for instance, marriage that exists between close familial relations. That has also had an interjection from the Honorable Chief Justice of India as we speak. But the big breaking news here is that the government of India, by way of a formal submission to the Supreme Court, is asking for the Supreme Court to decide on the contentious issue of Section 377 as per its own wisdom. That is the official position that the government has articulated before the Supreme Court just moments back, Sanjana. This is the big breaking news. Government, of course, is being represented by its foremost law officer who is making these formal submissions. He's citing some doubts, some aspersions.
Right.
Legitimacy being added to what he calls as pervert behaviors. But clearly, the government of India is not willing to take a yes or no approach to this issue. And therefore, it is leaving for the Supreme Court to really conclude or decide the issue of reading down Section 377 as per its own wisdom. Sanjay.
Absolutely, Meenakshi, and that was in fact my next question to you, because as you rightly have been pointing out, the ASG talking about a lot of perversions, as he's calling it, that are accepted in society. Incestuous marriage among close relatives is allowed, for example. But the CJI kind of, interjecting during all of this and saying that perversions are not allowed. Marriage is regulated by law. Also making it clear that they have clearly said that any subsequent status will be separate because Section 377 deals with a crime.
Well, absolutely. See, there is a demarcation that is being sought to be made in the Supreme Court. Section 377 is a section which deals with other forms of deviant behavior, like, for instance, bestiality or other unnatural acts of sexual conduct. However, what we are looking at right now at this juncture is for the Supreme Court to demarcate such behaviors like bestiality, for instance, Sanjana, from consenting adults indulging in same sex. That is the demarcation that has been sought to be made before the Constitution bench. And of course, since yesterday, there were a lot of speculations about the government of India going one way or going the other way, taking an either-or approach. That clearly is not happening. The government is neither coming out and telling the Supreme Court that the section should be read down, nor is it opposing it. It is simply telling the top court that this section deals with other forms of sexually deviant behavior as well. However, pertaining to the issue of reading down Section 377 so that it goes on to decriminalize gay sex between consenting adults, the government is willing to allow for the Supreme Court to proceed on this one as per its own judgment. As per its own wisdom, as per its own judgment, Sanjana. This is the big breaking news. Government not willing to take a either-or approach on this one. Government of India wanting for the Supreme Court to really decide this issue as per its own wisdom.
Right, Meenakshi, we understand that, Tushar Mehta, the ASG, also making it extremely clear that the Union of India, the government really does not contest the point that the right to choose a partner is a fundamental right, something that the Supreme Court also was very, very explicit about yesterday.
Well, absolutely. Justice, Honorable Chief Justice of India, Honorable Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, who has completely authored the privacy judgment's most significant portion, which has made the 2013 judgment of the Supreme Court untenable on the issue of 377. They have all reminded the ASG when he talked about the pervert, alleged perverted, or rather alleged pervert conducts of society, as to how even incestuous marriages are really not pervert conduct. They are regulated by marriage laws. So yes, there is this whole debate and discussion which is underway as we speak, Sanjana. And clearly the privacy judgment has empowered the citizens in such a way that the Supreme Court even has taken upon itself to course correct the 2013 judgment, which had set aside the 2007 Delhi High Court judgment, which had permitted decriminalizing of section of homosexuality by reading down of Section 377. So clearly, the Supreme Court feels at this juncture, remember, these are oral observations we are bringing to our viewers, but the very fact that the 5 judges are sitting to have a review, to have a reconsideration of their own 2013 judgment is a clear indication that the Supreme Court is on a path of course correction. And the big news here is that the government is not taking either or approach on this one. The government is not willing to take a black or white stand, Sanjana, and it is clearly leaving it to the wisdom of the Supreme Court to go ahead and do what it deems appropriate.
Right, Meenakshi, and also we understand that the government has kind of left this issue, as you have been saying, to the wisdom of the court, but they also said that if the court is kind of considering a larger issue, then the government of India will of course file a detailed statement to that.
Well, absolutely. That is the other aspect which is being discussed. The central government is telling the Supreme Court at this juncture that if it is considering other issues like marriage, adoption, those will be the issues that the government will consider filing a detailed affidavit on. But of course, the court has made it very clear that those are not the issues that it is venturing into at this juncture. It is only limiting itself to the examination of if gay sex between consenting adults is a criminal act or not. And on that, the Supreme Court has been just told moments back by the government of India that it can proceed as per its own wisdom. It can proceed as per its own judicial consciousness on this one, Sanjana. So clearly, this is one step closer to the Supreme Court going ahead and reading down Section 377.
Meenakshi Bhanja, thank you so much for putting that in perspective. Stay with us, Meenakshi. We also have Jerry Johnson, a prominent LGBT activist, joining us on the phone line. Jerry, what do you make of day 2 of the hearing in Section 377? The government of India coming out and saying that they leave this entire issue to the wisdom of the Supreme Court. Your first reaction to this?
So my first reaction is that, one, I was kind of expecting it because the government has clearly lost its hand in this game. One, they were trying to file for a delay, for an extension of filing their affidavit, and the court had clearly rejected that offer yesterday. So it is a clear indication from the court that the government either needs to back up its claim or immediately or just step out of it. And I think the government has got the hint. It's stepping out of this battle. It's letting the court take its course, letting the court decide on its pure jurisprudence. And I think it's going to come to our favor. Now it's only a matter of time where we wait for the court to deliberate and to come up with a very clear and good judgment, and to also create a nice precedent for various other liberties and rights that are to come.
Right. So using what you're actually saying as the jumping off point, because the court is in fact clarifying, the government of India and in fact the Supreme Court clarifying that the court is not going to be considering the civil rights of any homosexual person like marriage, inheritance, etc., but only considering whether to criminalize consensual sex between adults. So that in itself is a forward step.
Indeed, it's a great step, and it's a most fundamental step. I mean, before you move into any kind of civil rights conversation, you have to first set the grounds for the criminal rights conversation clear. And so that's what the court is doing. So the court is going to adjudicate whether 377 violates the constitutional rights of Indian citizens, which it does. And I'm pretty confident that that is a judgment that's going to come out from the court.
Jerry Johnson, LGBT activist, sounding very hopeful there. Let me quickly bring in my colleague Meenakshi, who is still with me on the phone line. Meenakshi, once again, we try and connect with Meenakshi in just a moment. Once again, for our viewers, day 2 of the very crucial Section 377 hearing, starting off in court with the government saying that the Union of India will be leaving the matter of constitutionality of Section 377 to be decided by the court. It will be left to the wisdom of the Supreme Court. The CJI has stated that the court is only considering the issue whether homosexual practices should be treated as a crime. My colleague Meenakshi Bhanja back with me on the phone line. Meenakshi, we're talking to Jerry Johnson over there, an LGBT activist, seeming quite hopeful. And once again, kind of raising the discussion that before you get into civil rights, before you talk about adoption, before you talk about marriage, it is very important once again that the precedent is laid down about the criminality of it, which is exactly what the CJI and the Supreme Court and the Government of India now is constantly reiterating and relaying that this is with regards to that. But if the government, but if the court is seeking a more detailed statement, that the Government of India will have to come back to them with that.
Well, yes, Sanjana, it is all a complex debate. There are no black and white answers, and it is a step-by-step process. The very fact that perhaps on or before the 3rd of October 2018, when the Honorable Chief Justice of India is all set to retire, we will be having a judgment which will go on to perhaps decriminalize gay sex between consenting adults, is in itself a huge shot in the arm for the cause in India. And Sanjana, what is very interesting is we have just accessed this 3-page affidavit which has been filed. It is not a comprehensive affidavit. It is merely a formal statement from the Government of India. 3 pages, not very long, not going into the merits or delving into other areas, but limiting itself to just telling the Supreme Court on this issue, government is completely all right with the Supreme Court proceeding and adjudicating this as per its own wisdom. So what happens now is, with the government adopting this malleable attitude, the attitude of the government is malleable here.
Right.
Therefore, there will be no stiff opposition in the Supreme Court. The might of the state will not be used to restrain the Supreme Court from proceeding to decriminalize gay sex between consenting adults. So that's a huge shot in the arm. And of course, the other areas are the subject matter of a debate for a different day, perhaps, given the fact that first we have to deal with this obstacle that we are in the midst of, where in India it is criminal behavior if adults indulge in sex and they belong to the same sex. So that is one obstacle that has to be removed, and subsequent to that, of course, will be larger questions of civil rights.
Meenakshi, I'm sorry we're out of time. We're going to come back to you on this issue and this very crucial hearing right after the break. Big day today, day 2 of Section 377 in the Supreme Court. The Government of India now saying that they're going to leave it to the wisdom of the Supreme Court to decide on Section 377. And we slip it